All right, welcome back, Generals and Admirals. This is General Johnny, and today we are going over the post-anniversary update deck. So what are the decks that you want to use that's going to get you in the game, that's going to get you started? Some reliable, really good decks, at least on the US side. I'll also look at the Russian side pretty soon here, but I'm a US main, so we're just going to go over the American side here. All right. Now, again, this isn't the perfect decks. This isn't, the update's been out for 2 days. So, this may adjust a little bit here and there, but these are going to do you well. So we'll start out with my number one deck. Now, it really depends on kind of like what zone you're playing on the map. But generally speaking, this is a pretty good deck, and it's actually a nuke deck. So, you can easily substitute without the nuke. That's kind of what I have here. The 2 variations, as you can see, although you add in 100 points there. But let's go ahead and we'll get started onto this. I'll just introduce each of the deck. We'll do a real quick overview, and then we'll go into the eaches on each of the decks. But without further ado, before we get started on this one, this is General Johnny Strategy. If you would like to support the channel, if you get any pleasure or benefit out of this, please like and subscribe. We also have a Discord. We are partnered with EA Armory. We have a Patreon. There are many ways to support us. Please do if you at all enjoy these sort of videos. All right, let's get on into this. So the 3 decks, at least on the US side, just tell you up front, the specializations are going to be Armor SF, Marine Baltic, and Marine Striker. So some pretty heavy hitters. Just to know, the Baltic and the Striker specializations both got buffed in this last update. Along with that, obviously the armor has gotten buffed too, so naturally it kind of makes sense. And infantry also got buffed, so SF. So this makes sense as a lineup as far as the specialization. So let's get on into the actual decks here. Okay, so the first deck we have is the SF armor deck, and I name all of these kind of weird naming conventions, but number them so it goes first to whatever decks, I kind of prioritize them. But the next thing is I do the specializations, and then Panu. So what is Panu? Post anniversary update. It's kind of, I guess, the acronym you can give it, and then I just add a bunch of pluses at the end of it just to show like, oh yeah, like this has been approved. I'm blessing off on it, as that sort of thing. But anyways, let's get on into this. As far as the deck goes, the Ranger Snipers, okay, nothing crazy there. All right, you got the Ranger RRC. So the Ranger RRC is absolutely amazing. So this is your forest fighter. You guys, if you guys are trying to, fight in the forest, definitely get these guys. They are going to be really, really useful. Also, the STT, okay, they've got the Stinger. Stingers aren't super great, but with the weapons they have, they're pretty good standoff against infantry. All right, Cav Scouts, definitely a plus now, since you can put a IFV like an AMP-V or something like that. Honestly, we'll talk a little bit more about the IFVs later, but you can just put it right next to it and it'll reload them. It'll take some while, but the Cav Scouts have really good range. They have really good optics, so definitely get these guys. I run 3 of them. You don't want to go too crazy about it, but the fact that there are only 3 soldiers makes it very easily to transport. RSOV, you just want a mixture of transport, especially when it goes to Armor SF with the RSOVs, the Silent Hawks, the Little Birds. I really like the Silent Hawks because it has a pretty good capacity of 14, and you can air insert at the beginning of the game without too much friction, as long as you have a little bit of air support, and it's just good for sneaking infantry around. If you have an established line, you're going to be pretty good with a Little Bird. So, use that as you will. The AMP-V, nothing too crazy, but Bushmaster and the Javelin, okay. And then you definitely need the V2 too. Honestly, if you can find a way to make this deck with 2 of these to us, here's the thing. It is the same thing as a normal M1A2. Honestly, I believe it's the same thing as an M1A2 V2 because it is a V2. It just can't get APS, but where it lags with APS, it still makes up with optics. So, like, at the same time, this tank is kind of OP in that aspect. Russians obviously have their own whatever recon tanks that actually can sneak. So that is kind of, I guess, if you're looking at it that way, but these guys can also lay. So, definitely bring the V2 too. It's going to help you out. All right, Sentinel, obviously, you need at least 1 of those guys. All right, moving on to the infantry tab, you have the Delta. I bring 3 of them. I bring the close quarter Delta. Obviously, bring the Silent Hawk, the Maz. Yep. So I upgrade the Maz. So it's 5 points cheaper than it has usually been. But you know, you can run it either way. It just really depends. 70 is like pretty tempting. I'm not gonna lie. But just look at the increase, about 150 on your penetration increase. So, you know, I think that's worth it. I actually really like the Ranger Maz. As opposed to the Raw. All right, up next we have the Rangers. So I should not be a huge fan of the Rangers, and be honest with you. I think it's actually pretty good. This is a good line infantry, and for 80 points is also really good. So you have 45 hit points. It's like the main thing. 45 hit points and 9-man squad. Like, that's going to be a lot better, just holding up to the fight. I mean, you look at some of this other infantry, I mean, 30 hit points, whatever, 60 hit points, but that's for the Delta. So they're going to be good infantry to infantry, of course, but, you know, this is going to be your line unit. It's full 30 points cheaper, too. So, I mean, like, that is the main advantage. But I go with standoff. I know a lot of people that do the close quarter. That's great. But, you know, the thing about the standoff, it's going to have a lot more pin. You get the raws. You're going to be able to be kind of like an AT infantry and fight off other infantry, which I think it's important to have frontline infantry that can fight off armor pushes or IFV pushes is really like, that's kind of like what should be in front of the full armor pushes. So you want something to contribute to the AT aspect. All right, next thing we have is mech engineers. Obviously, well-established unit. It's been pretty good. But the main reason we're bringing this is so that we can bring the ESV Bradleys. Okay, so the ESV Bradleys, you can set it up to APS, all right, full armor, whatever. You get the, you know, 400, you know, armor all the way across. It's fully upgraded as far as armor. The only difference is it has this blam. So the blam, the thing is not going to do really much at all to tanks, but it still eats up APS. So that's really important to note. Like, a lot of these things that are launchers and, you know, they eat up APS is still useful, right? As long as you like kind of combine it with something else. But for 95 points, and not to mention the blame will also hit infantry, and it will really hurt them as well. So, you know, definitely don't count this thing out. 95 points. It's got a Bushmaster. It's got full armor upgrades. It's got APS. Like, if anything, you put this with a tank, and it's going to absorb APS. It's going to help kill the infantry faster. It's also going to help absorb APS. Like, it's going to be good. And the enemy can't necessarily tell right off the bat. That's the blame instead of the TOW2. So, you know, it's still going to be a threat. All right, the mech rifle AA. Nothing much to say here. I mean, it's just really, you know, stingers, which really kind of got a debuff, in my opinion. I'm not sure what the actual stats are, but 65 points, you know, pretty good. And then you bring the M2A4 Bradley, and it's got the TOW2, so it's basically the same thing as this, except, you know, a little bit faster and a little bit more of a TOW presence. Okay, the mech rifleman MMG, honestly, you could do with or without this. You could probably substitute this, and honestly, probably if you would substitute it, you want to bring some of these AGLs. So the AGLs are going to help a lot because of their range. The range 800 meters, okay, as opposed to, you know, normal infantry 400, 500. So they're full 300 meters outside of line infantry. So when the line infantry pushes you, this will be able to basically shoot it 300 meters past where it's at, and then it'll also be able to suppress it really easily. The only problem it's going to have is against like IFV pushes or, you know, QCP infantry. All right, the main deck, and I promise I will start speeding up here. The V3. So I'm gonna be honest, you could probably adjust this, and actually I would, you know, the way this math works out doesn't really make sense not to do this. But the fact is, the V3 is really just, it's too expensive for what it is. It's got pretty good rounds, so maybe, let's see, yeah, so you want the 400 blast armor on the side if you're gonna be rocking something that's like over 300 points. But at the same time, like the 385, you can't even afford it with this. So you're going to want to get the one lower upgrade. All right. The Tusk armor with the APS. You're going to, these V2s, this is the way to run the V2. Again, you don't need the full upgrade. It really won't even do that with the point wise. But the M1A2, you want more of these, right? You could probably run the SEP. Let's see how much. All right, 270. So now that is why we have the Abrams, so you can run 2 of these. But this is going to be your workhorse tank. So the way I do it, right, is I have one of the M1A2s and one of the V2s or one of the V3s, okay? And honestly, if you want to do something like this where we do, yeah, no, see, again, that's why we did it, because, you know, you lose out on numbers there if you do it any other way. But yeah, you want to run like the normal tanks with something with APS if possible. Okay. All right, moving on. Tank tab obviously is going to dominate. No worries there. Support tab. All right. If you want to run more SHORAD, I wouldn't blame you, but I would do the Hellfire SHORAD upgrade with this. All right, pack 3, I run the 8 missiles. No reason to run the 300 points. It's way too much, especially because the support tab is pretty small. All right, to support supplies, and then the Iron Thunders. Iron Thunders are still really, really good. Again, not really worth it to bring 3 of these. 2 will do just fine. 3 is kind of a resource drain, in my opinion. You can bring it, but then you're going to have to bring less of something else. Actually, can you do it like this? No, you can't even do it like that. So, the main thing is you do need the ICVs. The reason, or the MCVs, the mortar carrying vehicle, you need that for your smoke. So, if you're going to have heavy armor pushes, which you are because you're armor SF, you're going to need smoke. So this is a really good one. It can smoke itself. It's got a lot of smoke, and it's pretty good if it gets shot at. It can still survive and then smoke itself and get away. All right, helicopters. Killer eggs kind of got nerfed. Not gonna lie, they will die really, really, really easily. However, they're still really good if you spam out 2 or 3 of these. And think about it, 3 of these is 180 points. Okay, I just do the Stinger upgrade and the minigun. Okay, so for 180 points, you can counter pretty much any single helicopter, I guess you could say, from the Russian side. So I think that's pretty good, considering most of their helicopters are not 180 points. But if there's any other AA outside of just air to air, you're going to get obviously destroyed. The Comanche, I run that. You guys know 6 Hellfires. Like, it's not worth it to run 4 Hellfires and something else. It just doesn't have enough Hellfires to pack a punch. But the main thing is its stealth ability and the visibility. All right, you're going to want to run maybe 1 dep. I have the Hydras and the guided rockets. That's, again, just for clearing out infantry, 155 points. This is not great, I'll be honest. Like, this is not what I would prefer, but it does the job. And then 2 swords. So this is for supplies. Heavily suggest, if you guys haven't been comfortable with bringing out supplies with helicopters, get comfortable, because this will upgrade your game a lot. I think the sword is a really good median where you're not spending 150 points to bring out supply. It's only 400 supply, so it's like, if it goes down, it's not the end of the world, as opposed to bringing out 150 point supply helicopters. All right, moving on to the air. Pretty easy nuke. All right, so this is obviously if you have a team that can help you out, then you're going to want to bring a nuke, at least with this deck. It really can change the, trajectory of a game if you have a good nuke. And honestly, the probability of this dropping, if you have any sort of seed, if you're not sending it straight into airplanes, like, this is going to, more than likely, I'd say 75% of the time, drop if you have any sort of coordination. And sometimes it'll drop even if you have no coordination. So I say all that to say, bring the nuke if you know how to use it. Okay, and the F-22 Raptor, this can probably be adjusted with the new update. It shoots the JATMs at the same time. It used to be where you had to shoot JATMs, you had to shoot then your AMRAMs, but now you could probably run the 400 point version. I like running the 6 AMRAM version because of the rate of fire, because of the stealth ability. I just like running it like this, and something about being under 400 points is really nice too, but do as you will. Okay, moving on to the second deck. The second deck is Marine Baltic. So this deck I've only played a few times. I'll give a shout out to, I believe his name is Corin. He's another YouTuber. He's pretty high elo, and he came out with this deck. I would like to adjust it a little bit. However, yeah, I think there's a few things that you can adjust here, but this is a pretty good deck. I'll start out with this. All right, the recon tab, Spartan Spikes, 95 points for the Spike LR. I mean, 1,600 meters with 700 penetration. 10.5. The Spike is absolutely OP. You need to get it, and with the, Spartan Spike, obviously 95 points, it's just too good to pass up. All right, the IST whatever scouts, okay, do it. The Spike SR, again, it's pretty good. It can basically, so when you're thinking about recon, you want it to be able, you want to pair it up with other infantry. You don't want just recon. But this recon can really help out against IFVs, which is like the real threat against recon, because typically you're not going to send just like a tank deep into the woods. Maybe you'd send a tank with an IFV, but this is going to regardless counter that. And then you can also send in some force recon, which is going to be a little bit more anti-infantry, but it's also got the AT4s, which again can counter IFVs and so on and so forth. This doesn't look right. Yeah, so you're going to want to run KNT or something. Like, there's no reason to run, I mean, maybe there is, I haven't really ran this before, but you're going to want to run something like that. Maybe the snipers that you can actually laze, but, well, I guess we have snipers right here. Alright, again, not my deck, but I would run KNT, Scout Snipers, 75 points, you get the laze ability, get the sniper stealth. Alright, and then I always like to bring one fast recon vehicle just to count cat points off the bat. So that's really the only reason I bring that. Infantry. The Cat 2 Alpha, alright, make sure, because the TOW has also the Browning, so this is going to mix and match, so get one of these things. It's going to be 1600 meters here, so they have the same range as the Spike LR, but something about, like, having a combination of top attack and ATGM, like, direct line missiles, that just overwhelms APS. It helps out when you're attacking, you know, they have a strong armor push or whatever. I believe the TOW 2 Alphas shoot faster, have faster reload and aim time than these Spikes. So, you know, they're obviously not top attack, but they're going to have a lot of damage. I said 900 pin, 12 damage, pretty good. The EST SOF OP, I believe the C90 300 pin and 9 damage is really high. So it's going to be really good against infantry, along with the Marine Raider CQC. The Marine Raider CQC can counter like everything. It can counter IFVs, it can counter infantry. It will delete infantry super fast. I believe the reason why is because of these MGLs. It's just so fast, and it rips off, and you know, ends up killing them really fast. So the Marines obviously is going to be your frontline infantry. Honestly, I would probably want to see more of those. The Kitsalit, yeah, this is just more of like a filler infantry. It's anti-infantry, so you know, it's okay. 35 points, kind of crap, but you know, it's whatever. I also get the Vilkas, you know, it's get the Bushmaster, Spike LR. It's not going to be able to fight toe to toe with other, you know, IFBs. It's not really its point. It's kind of a long range support. But if you want to keep something out, so I like the update and the fact that your IFVs become more important and more strategic. So like, you know, I wouldn't want to keep an ASVP, even though it resupplies infantry at the front. I would want rather a Vikas, because, you know, this actually has a Spike LR, it has a Bushmaster, it has a lot of things can help out other than, you know, just resupplying. It is 125 points, so it's going to drain your economy a little bit, but, you know, it's the trade-off. Okay, and the CV, so the CV 9035s, here's the thing. They have a Spike LR, really good. They only have 2 of them, so it's limited capacity. The Bushmaster is really good as well. Now, the issue being is these the armor on them, like 180 armor, frontal armor, 120 side armor, not that great. So, these things can do pretty good against infantry. You really want to pair them up with something else or run them in pairs. But I've found that these things are like a lot weaker than you would think, but I run the full upgrade on them, obviously. Support, Pack 2s. Pack 2s are amazing, 200 points, 4 missiles. It's going to kill the enemy very instantly. This isn't my addition, so I won't speak onto it. Honestly, I would probably run something else, but 110 points isn't bad either. The Lav ADs. Honestly, I actually really like the Lav ADs with the double Stinger pods, because it's got a really high rate of fire, and it's also really fast, 100 road speed, so it can get out, and it's only 160 points. So, and you can smoke, so, you know, if you do get fired at, you can smoke and get it out of there. I think smoke on a you know, anti-air platform is really important. All right, the K9, yep, it's just your basic artillery. I mean, it's got pretty decent range, 230 points, pretty good, but if you lose it, you know, that kind of sucks. 11-minute respawn, you only get 2 of them. Cat Fae is actually really good. You probably could get away with running with one of them, but this is for clearing out infantry. So here's the thing, and the Lav M. So I'm gonna say high ELO players, but you know, when you start thinking about long-term strategy and what works, especially with an armor dominant meta, you're gonna want to have mortars that fire smoke, and then you're also going to want to have Cat Fae. So mortars fire the smoke, they cover the advance of your infantry and your armor, so that your armor's not getting by ATGMs or whatever. All right, the Cat Fae clears out the AT infantry in buildings, because once the armor gets there, you know, if it's getting flanked by infantry in the buildings, not a great deal. So, you know, that's kind of how you used it, or should use it. Helicopters, Vipers, not a huge fan, but if you're going to run a Viper, run it like this, Sidewinder, Actually, you know what? You could probably adjust this, but you're gonna want to run the Viper just because the ECM for the Hellfire. So you want to have some sort of AT helicopter. Use the Viper for that. The Super Cobra. So this is the way I was told to do it. The Hydras and the Zunis. So this is like anti-infantry. You need to deal with something on the flank. You send this out. It's really fast and it kills it. All right, these are all basically supply helicopters. I would probably substitute something, you know, like something like this. I mean, you could, like, I brought out some infantry in the Osprey last time, and it wasn't too bad, but, you know, it's really up to personal preference, but, you know, go ahead, start using those helicopters to resupply and send out infantry. All right, the FA-18 Charlie Hornet. Yeah, this is a good configuration. You have, like, one of each missile type here, medium, short, and long range, so that's your classic ASF, really good opener, and then ASF throughout the game. Hornet, this is a suicide plane, so 285 points, 4 Mavericks. It's also got the gun run on there too, so like, you know, if you're getting pushed by armor, if they're past the midway point in the lines, you can kind of use this as a quick response. Or if they're not that great at their anti-air, you know, this definitely will take out whatever armor IFEs you need in the open. So you could probably run this differently with the 1,000 pound, but you know, you could also do 2 JSOW. So this is like your directed precision bomber. So taking out one, you know, important tank, or maybe if they're clumped up, you got 2 tanks. This, you hit this with that. Or if they have, you know, artillery or something that's clumped up, you can kind of spread this, you know, precision strike out, cover like a larger area, and still get the kill. Prowler just for seed, and then the harvest. So 100 points for a transport plane is really good in my opinion. Just for emergencies, I think it's definitely worth it. So it's everything on the Marine Baltic deck. Again, that's your number 2, and your number 3, the Marine Striker deck. So Marine or Striker did get a buff. We're gonna go through this, and I'm honestly gonna go a little bit faster because we kind of already hit the Striker decks. All right, so for the Marine Striker Panu deck, the Force Recon, obviously, so the Scouts, someone just told me this actually, so you can run the Snipers. So these Snipers used to not have the Striker RB, so you want to have the Striker RB, so you might want to like kind of substitute some of this. Probably adjustment you can make, something like, you know, this. Okay, the reason you want the Striker RV instead, let's see, boop, take away these, there you go. All right, the reason why you want the Striker RV Javelin trophy is because it both has the Bushmaster and the Javelin, which is really important. The other Strikers only come with the option of bringing not the Bushmaster. They may have the option to bring the Javelin, but their other weapon is not going to be the Bushmaster. Or you can bring the Bushmaster, but then you don't get the Javelin. This way you get both. You also get increased optics, and you also get the ability to laze and resupply infinitely. So 180 points for this is OP. So simply bring that. I bring the IFV toes, just again for starter. And then also the Predators more or less got a buff. I would bring it with the Griffin missiles again to counter anything in your backline, or, you know, find any recon in your backline and then kill it very easily. All right, so moving on to the infantry tab, the troopers. Okay, troopers are really good infantry. They have, outside of the Javelin, they only have 2 rounds of Javelin, but may I draw you to the attention, they have 3 AT4s. That's really good against, it's just a really good AT weapon, okay? And then it also can fight, it's a really good frontline infantry unit, okay? It can fight against IFVs really well, and what I like to do is I like to run these in pairs. Really, I like to run any infantry in pairs, and this is actually going to do better against, like, I guess, heavy armor pushes and infantry, but like, it's going to do better pushes than the Marine. So the Marines is slightly different. They're both frontline infantry, but if you kind of like pair these up, it's going to be pretty good. Okay, the troopers AA, they can fight infantry to infantry a little bit better. They are a little bit more expensive, but the reason why you kind of got to bring those and the troopers for that matter is just to bring the Dragoons. So you want to have one upgraded to full upgrade Dragoons. You don't want to do the Javelin missiles, and this is what I was talking about. 115 points, you can get the Javelin missiles, but you lose out on the Dragoons. So, but you do want the Dragoons. This is really good against anti-infantry from afar, but the Bushmaster really eats away. And, you know, I mean, they're pretty good armor as well, and they got APS, and they can resupply your infantry. So this is like honestly, in my opinion, this is the gold standard of IFVs because it's super fast, super mobile, and does all the other tasks that an IFV really needs to do in supporting the infantry. Yeah, it doesn't have AT weapons, but honestly, like the infantry is there for that. That's why you have the troopers. I also run 3 of the normal dragoons without the APS just for transport. And also, if you clump these up, they actually do really good, and you smoke and get them out. They can survive like a hit, especially with the upgrades. You don't necessarily need the APS, but you know, you'd use it situationally. The Marine CQC, again, most OP infantry unit in the game. If you are in a forest to forest fight with infantry and you have the Marine CQCs paired up with the Marines or the troopers or any other frontline infantry, you're going to win straight up. The Cat Toes, yep, again, that and the Cat Dragons, I would just pair them up for your long-range AT capabilities. And then the Assault Small is really good pairing up with Marines. So, you know, if you're pushing through the forest or you're pushing through buildings and, you know, you want to have your frontline infantry and then the Smalls, in case you get to building and building contact, they could kind of punch a hole through there. Okay, the Armor tab of the Marine Striker is what's really good. So, you know, you want to run 1 FEP with 1 HHC or HC. The HCs are, in my opinion, dollar for dollar the best value tank in the game, but you know, it lacks APS, so you know, I would pair it up with one of these. There's probably variants where you can bring more HHCs, but this just gives you more options. I like the MGS trophies. Can help against armor, it can help against other IFVs. It's got the 105 millimeter cannon, so you know, it's gonna help out with that. And then the Booker, so the M10 Booker did get debuffed, however it's still good. It's still good as a supplementary vehicle, so it's not the same as like you just like spam these and you can kill anything. No, I mean, it's gonna get shot by tanks and it's gonna die, and it's not super great as it was before. Yeah, you need the APS on this, so boom. All right, but and for 200 points is not super great, I'm be honest, but you know, it's still pretty decent. Honestly, I ran it with 150 points and it actually wasn't too bad. So I think the debuff is part of it, is being the 200 points. All right, we already went through kind of the helicopters, you know, ATs. Yeah, I would run it empty there, and then I actually have 2 Hydras, so you know, apparently the Zunis are really good though, so I think I'm gonna run it with the Zunis instead, and then the Venoms just for playing and bringing in resupply. Again, you can have combination of something else, but I like the Venoms because although they only bring, you know, 25 or 2.5k supplies, you're only working with 70 points, so it's opposed to the 150 points. All right, so air tab, just your basic seed with the CJs. You know, you're gonna want to max out the harms on that. You know, get 4 harms. The Hornets, again, you got your 4 Mavericks, get your ASF, and then the Viper. So this is the only thing. This is the best way to run the Viper because it's 375 points. All right, you don't want to break 400 points with the Viper. You have precision 200-pound LJ so the 200-pound LJ can, if you clump them up right, they will kill pretty much anything, whether it's laser guided or not. And then you also have the ability to do 2 bombs, and kill, like, let's say 2 building targets. So if they have infantry in 2 buildings, you want to hit them both at the same time, you can do that. You could hit a building and you know, maybe an AA piece and then another infantry piece in the open. Like, you can hit 4 targets and you have really good effects on that. Or you can get precision, you know, you can get lased on some of those, you can kill full tanks. So there's a lot of options for less than 400 points. Now, this won't always get away because it has 5% ECM, but it is fast enough, it has enough decoys where it stands a chance. So, you know, all the other variants are like kind of way too expensive. Like, even if we put the ACM, it's 420 points. Yeah, like, that's not worth it, especially if all they, you know, have to do is bring out a plane and, you know, this thing gets caught up, then you're losing out. So I would use it with the 375 point variation, and that's really the only addition or comments that I have on the air part of these decks. So that's it. That is all the Pan U decks, post anniversary update decks. And to be honest, a lot of people think so much has changed with this update, and I really won't get into it because you know, it's a sensitive, you know, topic. Like, a lot of the things have changed, a lot of the things have changed kind of out of nowhere, but in general, like, the game is still at its bones the same game as it was before the update. Yeah, they have some major changes for AA, they have some changes with IVs, but generally you just need to know that ground units are a lot more effective now. ASF is a lot more effective now. you know, bombing runs still work, but they're less emphasized. And then artillery isn't as easy to spam. So, you know, the resupply times on artillery are reasonable. So now you're not just getting artillery like crazy. Honestly, tube artillery is still really useful. So there's a lot of tube artillery howitzers that are really good, and I would recommend you look into. Unfortunately, none of the decks we covered today were too artillery focused, is kind of part of the update. But you always want to bring some sort of smoke mortars or what have you. Reason being, your tanks are amazing, especially on the US side, but they aren't good against ATGMs or anti-tanks in general. So that's why it's really vital to use smoke. But anyways, that's everything I have for the decks. Hopefully this will get you started off, at least thinking about the top 3 US decks if you guys are just getting into this game post anniversary update. Then hit these decks up and let me know what you think. Drop a comment, drop a like, and then just remember, you guys, please, if you enjoy this at all, you get any value out of this video at all, please subscribe to General Johnny's Strategy, where we go over real-time RTS games, including right now Broken Arrow. Also, we have a Discord community. We just hit 100 members. Really big deal. For every 100 members, you get a specialized role as well as a token of appreciation. Also, for every 1,000 subscribers, 1,000 subscriber for a YouTube channel will receive the same. We are partnered with BA Armory, and we also have a Patreon, so if you guys want to go support them, go ahead. Would much be appreciated. All right, I will see you guys next time.